Whoa. Okay, so that was a phantom brake. Hello and welcome to my channel, Swiss Tesla Fan. Today we're going to do something a little bit special. We're going to do an uncut trip all the way back from my work to my home. And let's see how it goes, and you'll get the full experience of driving along on the Tesla with me. So I was just charging, and now I'm going to have to get out of the charging place. As I did in the previous video, I had to go in backwards. So I'm going to have to do a little bit of manipulations here in order to get out of the parking place. But actually maybe I can cheat because this parking place is empty here. So let's do just that. Let's go in here just to back up and get out of the parking place. But normally I would have gone the other way to the right a little bit more. And this way you can see what it's like backing up with this car. It's actually fantastic because what I really like is the radars that indicate how close you are in centimeters to the objects around you. Okay, so now we're in the proper direction and we're gonna get out of the parking lot. And as you can see, I already have the destination in the GPS, and Navigate on Autopilot is activated. So I deactivated the audio notifications for the GPS so that they don't bother when I'm actually talking, because they can be quite loud sometimes. All right, and we are out of the parking lot. Okay, now we're gonna get on the highway. And for the moment I'm still driving manually 100%, just because there's traffic and sometimes the car doesn't exactly react the way I'm expecting it to. For example, here you can't see it, but there's a car next to me. And I think she's letting me pass, but I'm gonna have to get in front of her because she doesn't want to accelerate. All right, I guess we can turn on Autopilot now. Okay, we're getting into a tunnel, so Autopilot just turned off. And let's change lanes to get out of the passing lane. Oh, actually, it didn't do that properly. And the reason is that the person behind me just changed lanes at the same time, and that cut off the auto change lane because we no longer had the proper distance to do the lane change. So that's one of the biggest nuisances with the lane changes, is if somebody's changing lanes at the same time as you, which is normally acceptable from a human point of view, it will abort. So let's turn back Autopilot. So here you can see the cars in front of us are slowing down. I don't know why. So cars adjusting the speed. We're really slowing down quite significantly here, which is a bit of a nuisance. Seems like there's a car in front of us that's really slow. Yeah, my gosh. Okay, we're gonna do this manually because there's too much traffic. I won't be able to do the lane change otherwise. Let's get back into Autopilot. So that's what I do. I take over sometimes and then I immediately reconnect the Autopilot. Whoa. Okay, so that was a phantom brake. And it's a great thing we have this on camera, because I actually wanted to talk about this. So it's not the first time I've had that phantom brake there, and this is something that's pretty annoying and almost dangerous, especially here. I was on the left lane, and unfortunately there's nobody behind me, but basically when this happens, the car starts braking suddenly, and there was really no reason for it to brake. There was nobody in front of me. It's basically a false positive. It's picked up something it thinks is an obstacle, and it just started braking really strongly. So phantom braking, it's probably some preventive measure that's been implemented in the software, but it's actually pretty scary because it really slams on the brake really hard. And I've gotten used to it, but it's still dangerous. The best way to react when this happens, this is also wrong. Just to see here, it was putting the blinker to the right when it should have put it to the left. So I'm going to do it manually to the left here and get into this lane here. So going back to phantom braking, so yeah, the big question is, will it do that here? The speed limit is 100, but the maps are wrong. So a lot of things a little bit strange here, and the car in front of us is not going fast enough. So going back to phantom braking, yeah, so it slams on the brake pretty hard. So the thing you can do about it is, if you know that the car will phantom brake somewhere, because it does it every time there, one of the things you can do is just press on the accelerator, and the car will start accelerating again. This is what I would recommend, for example, if there are cars behind you, or even worse, a motorcycle. But if you really know that it's going to phantom brake at the same time everywhere, first of all, try to report it to Tesla. We'll try doing it now. Report phantom braking. I didn't get it right. Let's try again. Report phantom braking 2 minutes ago. All right, so this way we've just done a report to Tesla. Hopefully they can use that data to improve the system, because that would be really a good thing, because as I said, right now I consider the system as being a little bit on the dangerous side. It's not clear if it's never happened to me that I had somebody behind me when this happened, but that would really freak me out, because the person might be really surprised. The person following you might be really surprised. And so yeah, I would say this is probably the biggest flaw I know of currently in the Autopilot system. And the worst part is, it will even do that if you just have the cruise control activated. So meaning the only way to really get around this is to completely deactivate cruise control and drive manually, basically. So that's a pretty huge flaw. Tesla, of course, does not want to advertise this, because it's clearly something that doesn't look too good for them. But a lot of Tesla owners know about it and suffer through it. It doesn't seem specific to a model. A lot of people were hoping that the Model 3 with the hardware 3 would not have this issue, but clearly that's not the case, since I do have hardware 3. And I still have this problem. So it's not clear to me what's going on. And yeah, so it'd be great to have some kind of feedback from Tesla on that, so that we can at least understand what they're trying to achieve with this. But in the meantime, it's a little bit frustrating. Now, there are some conditions in which you can expect it. And basically it seems somehow related to either shadows or sunlight directly hitting, sorry, I'm concentrating on what's going on here, shadows or sunlight directly hitting into a camera. So, and I've had it also once or twice analyzing the footage after phantom brake, and I'll try to do it here. I'm going to record the phantom brake instance here. I'll have to review the time at which it occurred so that I can look at the footage. But one time it happened to me in the tunnel, and what happened is that the tunnel lighting changed because basically the lights were not the same ones through the tunnel. And what happens is that the exposure of the camera suddenly changed, and that seemed to trigger a phantom brake. So it seems related to the way that the cameras perceive the image. And probably, sorry about that noise, it's again the speed limits that are wrong on the map. But it seems related to the camera's perception with sunlight. So basically, I've had this occur much more when we have like low sun, like in the afternoon. Here it's 4 o'clock and 4:30 in the afternoon. So you have some of these shadows that can be pretty big, and they might be misinterpreted for obstacles. So yeah, that's sort of the way I do it. Is I sort of, you know, look at things. I've also had it sometimes when, for example, here you have these big bridges, and here they're not casting shadows, so I'm not expecting any of that. But if they did cast really big shadows, it seems to somehow influence the system. And last but not least, when you have trucks and the sun coming from the side and casting shadows, it does seem like it could also sometimes mistake that. So I'm gonna let this truck in here manually, because I'm not sure the car would let him in. So the reason I'm not sure the car would let him in, because you could barely see the blinker because his back blinkers weren't working. So because that seems to relate somehow to the blinkers, I'm not sure, but seems quite smart sometimes about people getting in it. So anyway, so big trucks casting shadows, that seems to be also a factor. So basically, knowing what can trigger this makes it, you know, more or less expected. So I'm less surprised by it, and I've accepted to. But you also have to watch out that nobody's tailing you really closely, because they could be surprised. And the Tesla does brake really hard. The reason being that it can brake with both the actual brakes and the regenerative braking at the same time. So that's as if you were braking on an ICE car with both your disc brakes and the engine, which you never do. That's not the way you use it. Okay, so here I hope I can get past that truck before we get into the construction, because you'll see in Switzerland the construction lanes, the left lanes, are not wide at all. They're 2 meters wide. This car is about 1 meter and 90 centimeters, something like that. So that only leaves 10 centimeters of margin. So here I'm gonna do it all manually because there's traffic and I'm in this left lane. So I don't know if it shows up on the camera, but I have very little wiggle room here in order to stay in this lane. Trying to stay in it. A lot of people with big cars, they go over the line, which is an issue and dangerous. So here, this bridge here on the right, if I was on the right lane, I'll often get phantom braking here also. So here, of course, I'm driving manually, so I won't have the issue. But I've had it happen to me quite regularly. Although what seems to have changed is that it seems to brake less hard in this location. But yeah, it's clearly an issue, this phantom braking. And if you are looking at a Tesla and you are interested in this system, it's better to go in knowing that this issue exists, because that way you know, you won't be surprised by it, and your experience will be overall better, I think. A lot of people that have experienced it the first times can get scared. I was reading in forums that some people were actually stopping to use the systems altogether, which is a big shame because you're paid top dollar for this. Too early, I couldn't start it yet, and I need to get back in. All right, so here, for example, here for some reason this overpass is not an issue. Maybe the shadow's too big, I don't know. So it does this curve pretty well. And yeah, so that's it's interesting that we had an occurrence of phantom braking. Maybe I can break that into the title of the video. But it's definitely something, yeah, that's an issue. For me, it's not a deal breaker, and it seems even my family has gotten used to it. But I can understand that some people and some passengers don't enjoy it at all. Now, it's not clear to me if it's easy to get around. It would seem to me that the radar should be able to notice that there's nothing there, because there is a front radar that picks up objects pretty far. But yeah, for some reason it still does that. So we'll have to see if major versions of the software improve this or not. But so far, minor updates have maybe influenced the way it brakes, braking a little bit nicer, but it still does it. Okay, so here basically, as the speed limits are going up, I'm changing the speed limit, and I'm still in navigate on autopilot right now. So this is the beginning of rush hour here. So there's a lot of traffic, and people here can drive quite aggressively. The speed limit is 120, and even if you were driving the speed limit, you'd still have a lot of people pass you. So I'm going to try a lane change after this car, because I do have some space. Yeah, there we go. So here I just changed the distance between cars. If it's not too, if the traffic is reasonably fluid, I prefer to have a pretty big distance. And if we're really going slowly in a line, I might reduce it, but you still want to keep safe distances. So at this time in this area, you'll find a lot of this sort of stop and, well, not stop and go, but traffic that slows down and speeds back up and does that all the time. This highway here is pretty saturated, and they're talking about building a third lane. I think they've been talking about it for 20 years. So of course, a lot of people concerned about the environment do not want that third lane. So it's not clear if it'll ever happen. I'm going to go back into the regular lane because I don't think it'll make much difference now. So as you can see here on the left, there's two cars, a motorbike and another car in front, and none of them are respecting speed distances. And what's really nice is that right next to us here on the left, we should be passed by a Tesla Model 3. If he gets up to... I wonder if he's using Autopilot also. It looks like it. Just made a nice sign to him. It's fun to be driving next to a Tesla Model 3. Yeah, he's an Autopilot. I saw him took his hand off the wheel. So this is the future, guys. Two Tesla Model 3s driving next to each other. You can actually see the car, it's right here. And it's gonna pass us because we're in the slower traffic. There we go. Black Tesla Model 3. Oh, it looks like that could be the standard plus. Okay, it's the first time I see a standard plus, because it doesn't have the dual motor signature at the back. Standard plus is a really amazing car. I didn't consider it because I do drive pretty far and I wanted the extra range. But compared to the competition, the offer is just incredible. I mean, you get so much for your money. in terms of an electric vehicle, of course. It's still expensive, but it's a wonderful, wonderful car. And knowing what I know about range and charging now, I might have considered it more seriously. I was really worried about range, but the standard range is already quite good. The big question is what will happen in winter, because basically in winter your range will drop, and maybe the standard range battery might be a little bit on the low side for some trips. But we'll see that in the winter and see what happens. So you can see that I'm not passing here. The reason is that I like my drives to be as stress-less as possible, and sometimes I don't mind just cruising on the right, even if it means going a little bit slower. But just that, you know, I don't have to worry with traffic. But here I am going to pass because it's really slowing down. And there's a motorcycle passing me, and well, he was kind of in the middle of cars, and that's why I took the autopilot off, because that's something that's had strange interactions from the autopilot before. Whoa, what was that? Okay, something weird happened here. Also, it braked again. I'm not too sure why. Okay, now we're going to change lanes. So I have to review the footage to figure out what was going on there. I know this car here in front of us, it's a rental car. It might have braked and I didn't see it right away. Sometimes the car does pick up things before I do. But I just reactivated autopilot, so maybe it was just reacting to the fact that it was changing speed based on my input. I had a faster speed and it wanted to go slower. So, yeah, this is an interesting drive because we've had a few surprises, let's say. So you might wonder, you know, is it worth it? Is it worth using these systems and, you know, going through these surprises? I would say overall yes, because it sort of changes your perspective on driving. Instead of actively maintaining your position in the line, doing lane changes actively, and you know, making sure that you have to look at your environment at the same time you're doing these things, it frees part of your brain. So part of your brain is basically not actively doing these movements, but instead it can spend more time monitoring what's going on. So I find myself looking a lot further down the road and also looking more at what's going on around me in the car. Rather than focusing on, am I in the line? Am I at the proper speed? So that kind of makes it possible to focus on let's say, more important things. And you can also, you know, figure out, react to whatever surprise you might have had. So yeah, I think it's worth it, and definitely on trips that might be boring or trips that might be long. It's definitely a help. Now, by no means does it mean that you can stop being attentive or take your hands off the wheel. That's really not what should be done. First of all, it's illegal, and also, second of all, considering the state of the system, I would not recommend it. It's good to have your hands on the wheel at all times, so that if you do need to react, you can react as quickly as possible. So we're almost on our exit here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a lane change here. I have the room, and it can do it nicely. And I'll let the car actually take us out of the highway. And if there's not too many people, what we're going to do is we're going to let it choose the lane as we exit the highway. Most of the time it takes the left lane, which is wrong. We need to be in the right lane. So we'll see if it gets lucky this time, and if we can do it. I just don't want to do it now. There's no traffic behind me right now, so maybe we can do it. Another thing you should, so you'll notice here the car is no longer in the center of the lane, so it's already started to go to the right. Now it only puts the blinker on now. I prefer to have it do it a little bit earlier. Now it's sort of wiggling around, so normally it should go to the right lane. I'm gonna have it slow down here, but I'm pretty sure it's gonna, yeah, it picked the left lane, so we're gonna change that. So this is something that's still not correct. I'm just guessing it's not implemented. Because it does have the navigation information, it could do it. Alright, so this part here is a little bit tricky because you can't see very well. There could be a lot of traffic. So, welcome to Nyon. Fortunately, the Mont Blanc that's right in front of us is covered by clouds. That beep was just the speed change. That's a little bit further in the navigation than it is in real life. I'm usually quite good at driving the speed limit, but I'm only as good as the quality of the maps in terms of the car reacting to my speed. So here I just activated cruise control, just so I don't go over the speed because I'm actually going downhill. So we're gonna get into the city here, and of course there's a roundabout. So when you get to a roundabout, the navigation system will actually tell you that you have to take an exit at a roundabout. So the car has a way to know that it's at a roundabout, but of course the Autopilot has no way of navigating roundabouts now. So the big question is, Elon Musk was saying that the Autopilot would be navigation complete, feature complete by the end of the year. Does that include roundabouts? The reason I'm curious is because of course it's Elon time, so by the end of the year could mean next year or even end of next year. But the big question is also, there's not that many roundabouts in the US, and so are the engineers considering the features in terms of being feature complete in the US or feature complete globally? That's a big question. We'll have to wait to see, because of course Tesla will not communicate on that. What is supposed to be coming this year is the detection of red lights, traffic lights, and stop signs. I went back to the Tesla website to check, because I thought that initially when I bought the car they were advertising that it would recognize all kinds of traffic signs, like speed limits, for example. But I went back to the configurator recently, and I noticed that it only said stop signs and traffic lights. So that's a bit of a shame, because a lot of competitors, and even the first version of Autopilot, that's based on the Motion Eye, I think, platform, has full sign recognition, and it seems to be some kind of patent battle going on with Tesla, and maybe that's why they won't have the full sign recognition, sign reading capability. But if it is, it's really a nuisance, because a car like this, you really expect it to have at least what the competition has in that regard. So people are still hoping it'll come. But if it is a patent issue, and if Tesla is in a dispute, that could take a long time to get it resolved, unfortunately. So we're almost there, 4 minutes left. So here I'm doing all the driving manually, of course. And I have the warning to... I keep this warning for speed limits on because That way I don't have to look at the screen that much. I can just listen if I pass the speed limit and then take my foot off the brake, foot off the gas. So there is basically, it is a bit weird to have the speed here on the right. I was concerned about that at first, but now that you have the audio indicator, that makes it really simple to just know, okay, I've reached the speed limit. And that way I don't even have to look at the screen most of the time. I can really just focus on the road. And since there's nothing blocking my view or to look at, you have a much better focus on the road. So in a way, what seemed to be a downside has turned to, actually for me, more security in terms of the better focus on the road. So. Okay, so we'll go park the car on the underground parking lot. So I still have to walk from there to my home. So even though I'm driving you to this location, you won't be able to guess where I live from that, which was sort of the point. But basically, you'll see that in this underground parking lot, the reason I chose it is I used to park somewhere else. I used to park further along the lake, and it was much cheaper. But I chose to go into this underground parking lot because included in the price of the parking lot, there are two 22 kilowatt charging stations, and they don't charge you anything for extra. So basically, that offsets the monthly fee that I pay for the parking, because I can, as of course, considering a stall is available, I can just charge as much as I want, well, almost, because in order for the places to be available, there is a charge limit to 3 hours, and I do try to respect that as much as possible, because you don't want to occupy those stalls too much, otherwise people will start fighting over them. And I must say, in usual, people do respect it. Sometimes they're a little bit late, but it's rare that I've had too many problems with that. So here we are. So I need to get the card out here. Parking lot is right here on the left. And what's nice is, again, you feel a little bit like a VIP here, because you come in and straight after the entrance there's the charging stations right in front of me. So here there's actually a stall that's available, but as I charge at work I really don't need to, so I'm just not going to plug in, and I'm going to directly go park the car. The other thing is, because the charging cables are short, some people, instead of parking the car backwards, they just pull on the cables and sort of stretch them. And what this has managed to do is damage one of the cables. So that stall that's free is actually free because it's the one that works less well. So often if I want to charge there, you plug in, the charge starts, and you wait 2 minutes and it stops, and then it will start again, stop again, start again, stop again. And the way the Tesla works is that after like 5 times it didn't successfully manage to have stable charge, it will just stop charging. And the only way to get around that is to basically, the way I do it is, if that's the only one that's available, I unplug it, physically unplug it, and sort of wiggle the cable a little bit, and then plug it back in, and hope that the cable is in the right position for it to be stable. And so I just wait again, and if after like 2 minutes there's no stopping in the charging. That usually means that the charge is stable, and I can leave it as is. Once it's stable, it works really fine, but it's a bit of a nuisance. And they've changed the cable once to try to fix that, but it's still doing that, so it's not entirely clear if it's just the cable or the charging station. Okay, you can see here it's giving us very precise centimeters for the position, so that usually goes to the stop position. And there we are. And now I'm just gonna complete the video. So that's it. We made it all the way home. Well, not all the way home, but to the car's destination. Hopefully you liked this video. If you did, put a thumbs up, and make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell to get notified when I release a new video. And of course, if you like this, and if you are ready to purchase a Tesla, make sure to use a referral code. You'll get free supercharger electricity, 1,500 kilometers at the current time. I put my referral code in the description below. And of course, and I've seen that some of you have not hesitated to ask questions in the comments, and I really like having hearing from you, having feedback, even suggestions for new videos, all that kind of things. Please don't hesitate. I'll do my best to answer quickly to any questions you might have. And yep, so that's it for this video, and see you in the next one. Bye bye.